Ani Bojo Kwe Kwe. It's Catherine here at Moonstar Lodge in Central Ontario, Canada. Actually, it's Turtle Island, is what I prefer to say. I've come today with a wee bit of a fireside chat. It's not a tarot oracle reading or any other kind of lesson or perhaps even a teaching. But when we started doing videos about 8 years ago, I wasn't in a wheelchair yet, and we were still running classes. But of course, with the pandemic, we haven't been able to do classes or ceremonial gatherings to honor solstice now in just about 3 years. So I thought I would resume or reinitiate the fireside chat to talk about Winter Solstice of 2022 and what that means to me personally and what that means in Indigenous culture. We formed our lodge back in 1982, and our focus has been Indigenous arts, spirituality, and education. And I'm a marriage officiant, and Brian is the executive director of an Indigenous charity. And we have worked with communities and governments and provincial ministries and individuals all these many years, trying to bring back the teachings and traditions that we were disenfranchised from with respect to family members in residential school and this sort of thing, the cultural repression of our teachings. So both Brian and I have worked diligently to reclaim individually and for what we hope is the greater good, the teachings which fuel our culture and help with its revival, and hopefully with the reconciliation process initiated by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission back in 2016. So talking about moon cycles, new moons, full moons, rituals thereof, the clan mothers, or in my case we call them the clan grandmothers of the moon cycles, talking about the seasonal shifts with equinoxes and solstices, but also the kinds of ceremonies and celebrations that are appropriate for these times of year. So this particular fireside chat is about Winter Solstice 2022, as I mentioned. The exact time of Winter Solstice, it's actually Wednesday, December 21st, and in our area, our latitude and longitude, it's 4:48 p.m. And in this same time frame, on the 23rd of December at 5:17 in the morning is the new moon of the next moon cycle, which is talks with relations. We have another important solar event on January 4th this year, and it's called perihelion. And perihelion is when grandfather sun is the closest it can be to the earth in a given year. And that may seem odd. It's like, if grandfather sun is that close to the earth, why are we having winter? Well, it's because our axis, our tilt, is 23 degrees away, so it takes a longer time for the rays of the sun to reach us in the northern hemisphere. So we're having winter, whereas in the summer hemisphere, or southern hemisphere, they are having summer because they are 23 degrees tilted toward the sun. So in that time frame from the 21st to the 4th of January, which is a mere 2 weeks, we have 3 special events. So let me start with solstice. We say that solstice is the time of the longest dark. And the longest dark means that we see, unless it's cloudy, the stars and whatever planetary bodies are available for us to see in that particular time in the night sky. When my sister Judy and I were little girls, and I have told this story before at our gatherings, my father would bundle us up and take us up the road from where we lived in Guelph, Ontario, to the backwoods area along a part of Victoria Road which was called Monkey's Bridge, and later it became expropriated land and turned into Guelph Lake. But in the time when we were little girls, it was still accessible. No trails or anything to speak of. We would walk in the woods, and my dad would stop us at the evergreen trees, particularly the pines and cedars, and he'd ask us to look through the branches. And as we looked through the branches, we would see stars, and it looked to us as little girls like the stars were sitting on the branches. And he told us those were our ancestors. And because it was the time of the longest dark, this was an opportunity to speak at length with our ancestors. For from the stars we were born, and to the stars we shall return. There are lots of stories about the winged ones and the ones that come from the sky, whether you call them angels or ancestors. There's a number of blended traditions there around this. But what we were told is it was a time to celebrate and really never to be afraid of the dark. My father had the gift. He was Algonquin and Mohawk, Haudenosaunee, and he could call the animals and they would come. When he took us to this place in the daytime, in the summer particularly, when he could call the little birds, or in the fall when he would call the chickadees, he would call them and they would land on his head and tell us as little girls not to laugh or we'd scare them. And of course we were little and we laughed and the birds would fly off, but we watched them walking around in his long hair. And in the solstice time he could call the deer and they would come right up to his hand. He had no food for them. He just knew. He knew the language of the deer, and he knew the language of other animals who would come. And he taught us not to fear the night because the ancestors were watching. Solstice is a time of reflection. It is for us our New Year's Day. So we begin the new cycle, and it's fortunate for us in 2023 that the next new moon is a mere not even 2 days later. So this means that our year will follow the medicine wheel almost exactly to the positions. Let me just grab that for you. So there's winter solstice, and the number 1 here represents the first moon cycle in a perfect year. So 2023 is pretty much within about 40 hours a perfect year. So we will follow this and end up with a full 13 moon cycles with a day or two shift. And that's a wonderful thing for me as a healer and a teacher and a communicator and an artist, because I can work with people based on that information. So we have about a 40 to 48 hour period. Actually, it's a little longer than that. It's just before solstice, within a few hours before solstice, and a few hours, about 24 hours after the 23rd, so into the 24th, when we can experience a grandmother called becomes her vision. Although she doesn't have a full moon cycle this year, her spirit presence will be with us. And she is the grandmother who asks us to reflect back on the previous 12 moon cycles and all the teachings of each respective moon cycle. So those moon cycles, each of them has an owl, and that owl is the shape-shifted form of the grandmother. And then the shape-shifted form of the grandmother and the owl become the entity of the moon. And each grandmother has a teaching, she has a wisdom, she's a knowledge keeper. And if we follow the traditions of the grandmothers and we take on their teachings and learn, then by the time we come to becomes her vision, we have amalgamated a tremendous amount of maturity, wisdom, and hopefully growth. And it's okay if there's parts of the wheel where we stumble a little bit with the teachings. It gives us an opportunity to go around the wheel again like a spiral. And we have the opportunity again in the next year, Creator willing, to take on the lessons of the grandmothers that are a little tougher for us. But coming back to this time of winter solstice and the amalgamation of becomes her vision, this is a very auspicious time. And I would suggest to anybody who wishes to do so that they collect some water before the water freezes over in the lakes. And if you can't get water that's not frozen over, find somebody who has a well and well water and get a glass jar full of water and put a lid on it and put your sacred objects around it and your crystals and your feather and the things that are important to you, and allow yourself to have your objects, when you're not using them in ceremony, to sit with that water. We call the water nibi, and it is the blood that flows through the veins of Turtle Mother Earth. In reflecting on the ancestors and solstice and becomes her vision and new moon of talks with relations, it is very much a time of ceremony. It is a time of opening your bundle, of offering the sacred medicines, to create a fire for the ancestors, and food, and to offer the food to the ancestors outside in a place where it is, and in a means which it is not going to be toxic to the earth, so no paper or no plastic plates, that sort of thing. But we offer sacred medicines and bundles, and we do ceremony with fire and the water that we have collected. And we take time to journal. And we journal and we look at the year that's gone behind and this new year that's coming. And with the new moon on the 23rd of Talks with Relations, we are reminded that it isn't just the relations who are physically in this dimension with us, but it is the ancestors who have come 7 generations before. And we can speak to the spirits of the ancestors who are the new generations coming the 7 generations ahead of ours or beyond us. It's a time to reflect inward, and it's a time to connect. There is that dichotomy. We are connecting with family, we are connecting with ancestors, but it's a time when we take the items in our bundle through the winter. The plants are resting, the seeds are resting, many of the animals are hibernating. It is meant to be made aware to us that it is a time to reflect, to rest, that when the energies of the earth awaken in the spring and in the summer, we will have lots of energy stored up to deal with the extended light of day. But right now it is the extended dark of night. So Brian and I wish you a peaceful end to 2022. We wish you a wonderful solstice. We wish you a blessed new moon of talks with relations. I may actually do another fireside talk about what we do with perihelion on the 4th of January, because actually the full moon is on the 6th. So I think I will leave that for a separate fireside talk to come in the next couple of weeks. So, aho, miigwech, nyoen, blessings to everyone. Peace.